Augusta Savage was an incredible woman. She was a sculptor during the time of the Harlem Renaissance. Born in Florida in 1892, she was the daughter of a minister, and right at an early age, she knew that she loved to make clay figures. Now, her father did not approve of this, and he would actually punish her when she would make clay figures. She once said that he almost beat the art right out of her. Almost, but not quite. She kept on sculpting, and in high school, she finally won her father's approval when she made a religious statue that made him cry. In the early 1920s, Augusta moved to Harlem, New York. Now, while she was working there, she found out about an art competition where they were going to pick 100 young women to study in France. So she was very excited about it. She submitted her art, and unfortunately, she wasn't picked. And she felt like the reason she wasn't picked is because she was black. It turned out that was the reason. The judges of the competition actually admitted it to her. As you can imagine, she was very, very upset by this, but it really lit her fire. The experience changed her life. From then on, she fought for black artists not to be judged by their color, but by their talent. She eventually did get to France after she sculpted a bust of a young boy. This sculpture is called Gamin, which means a young person who lives on the street. That sculpture was so well liked that she won money to study in Paris. Part of her trip expenses was also paid for by nickels and dimes given to her by the people of Harlem who had come to know and love her art. When she came back from France, the Great Depression had started in America, and that was a time where nobody had money. Black people were hit the hardest, but the whole country suffered. Augusta Savage started an art studio. It was called the Savage Studio of Arts and Crafts. She taught the children of Harlem about art. The government started a program called WPA, which put a lot of artists to work, which was great. Writers, poets, playwrights, painters, they all got to work through this program. Augusta Savage kept on teaching with the help of WPA, and she changed the name of her school to the Harlem Community Arts Center. Because teaching took so much of her time, she did less of her own art. Augusta Savage thought art should be open to everyone, black or white, rich or poor. She said, if I can inspire one of these youngsters to develop the talent that I know they possess, then my monument will be their work. No one can ask for more than that. Augusta's story has a sad ending. She was poor her entire life, and she fought many battles for black artists. There came a time when it all became too much. She moved out of Harlem, and for the rest of her life, she kept herself apart from nearly everyone. When she died in 1962, she was almost forgotten. But her work lives on, and she continues to inspire us as an artist and as a teacher. Now that we learned about Augusta Savage and saw some of her incredible sculptures, we're going to make a sculpture of our own. I'm going to be using air dry clay today, but you can use whatever kind of clay you have at home. I do have some clay tools that I had laying around that I'm going to use, but you don't need those. And I also have a cup of water. This is helpful to smooth out the clay. Augusta Savage is famous for making sculptures of just the head, neck, and shoulders of a person. This is called a bust. This is what my clay bust ended up looking like. It doesn't have to be perfect. Sculpting a face is pretty tricky, so have fun with it. If something gets messed up, instead of starting over, just go with it. Maybe you'll make it into a really fun, interesting, kind of cartoony character. So go ahead and get out a big wad of clay. I do recommend using a big piece. The bigger your sculpture, the easier it'll be to add all those details. So first thing I'm going to do is form a chunk of clay into a ball. I know it might be a little hard to picture this, but this ball is the top part of my head. So next I'm going to attach my jaw to the head. So I have another piece of clay and I'm going to shape it into a triangle. That should be good. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and just attach it right onto the bottom of the circle, kind of pointing forward a little bit. So you can see I'm using my fingers to blend the triangle into the ball, and I'm just keeping in mind all the way along that this is a jaw. I have a picture here of a skeleton from the side, just so you can kind of see where I'm getting at. Clay is very forgiving, so just have fun with it. You can always cut off different pieces, stick on different parts, and change the shapes as much as you need to. Now I'm going to make the eye sockets, so I'm going to take my pinkies and just really gently press right in the middle of that first circle. And there's my eye sockets. Now what I'm going to do is pull the nose up. So all I'm doing is kind of pinching in between the two eyes, making sure it's kind of flat along the bottom, and then just pulling that nose up. Now it's time to give my statue a neck. So I'm going to take a piece of clay, go ahead and make it the shape of a cylinder. So I'm going to roll it a little bit, get that nice round edges, and yep, there we go, got my cylinder. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and blend it right on the bottom of the head. So while I'm making my adjustments here, I realize that my chin is massive. So I need to bring back some of that chin space. So I just went ahead and cut off at an angle along the bottom of the chin to make it look a little bit smaller. And that really seemed to help. If you want your character to be a female, it does help to have a skinnier jawline. That'll just make the character read a little more feminine right off the bat. But every person's different, so you can shape your character however you would like it. Next thing I'm going to make is a base for my sculpture. So I'm going to take another big piece of clay, roll it into a ball, and then I'm just going to squish it down like a pancake for the bottom of my sculpture. From there, what I'm going to do is blend the bottom of the neck onto the base. Next, I'm going to go ahead and make my eyeballs. Now, I think I made the mistake of making my eyeballs a little too small, so you want to make sure that yours fit comfortably in your eye socket without bulging out. I went a little on the safe side and mine ended up being a little small. You can take a pencil and just poke a hole in the middle if you want to have a pupil, or you can wait and paint your sculpture later and paint the black part of the eye in there. It's totally up to you. I'm kind of lazy and I don't feel like painting it, so I did mine like this, but the eyes do look a little bit like Cheerios. I also feel like my sculpture looks like the guy from The Mummy, which I've never seen, but I'm going off of the ride at Universal. Okay, so now we got to make some eyelids to make our sculpture look less mummy-ish. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to take teeny tiny pieces of clay, and I'm just going to roll them into like a cylinder shape again. And then I'm going to flatten them out, give them a little curve, kind of like a crescent moon. And then from there, I stick it on either side. So I want to make that classic kind of eye shape around the eyeball. So we don't want to see the whole eyeball, just like when you look at your friend, you know, you don't see their whole eyeball, you just see the little piece that's showing through their eye. So that's what we're doing with our sculpture. It's gonna look scary, that's okay. We'll work on it. Yeah, my guy looks terrifying. And if your sculpture does end up looking scary, worst thing that can happen is you have a new Halloween decoration. Okay, so I'm making my eyelid again, so you can see me rolling the cylinder, flattening it out, and then just giving it that little crescent moon blend. And you might need a toothpick or some little tool to help you get right up against the nose. That's a little tricky to do, but just do your best. My eyes, I didn't spend a lot of time on them, and they are a little uneven, which I think is the thing that bothers me the most about my sculpture. So I do recommend taking a little extra time, making sure that your eyes are even, because it's hard to fix that after you keep going. taking my little tool here, you can use a toothpick for this, and I'm just going over my eyelids again. I'm also going to go ahead and draw on some eyebrows with this same tool. The reason I'm drawing on eyebrows is because I want my sculpture to be a girl, and I noticed that when I stick eyebrows on, like I make little eyebrows and stick them, then it does look a little bit more masculine. So that's just something to keep in mind depending on what gender you want your sculpture to be. You might want to make skinnier eyebrows. So here I just drew on some teeny little nostrils just for fun. So all I did was little C shapes on either side of the nose just to bring out that nose shape a little bit more. For the mouth, I'm just going to give my sculpture a sly, simple smile. Nothing crazy. Of course, you can play around and have your sculpture have a different expression if you'd like, but I'm just going to keep it simple. So now I'm going to make some little lips. So I'm going to make a teeny tiny little coil with just a little piece of clay, and I'm going to squish it down, and then I'm just going to stick it right along the bottom of the mouth, and I'm going to do an even tinier one for the top of the mouth. And that's totally optional. You don't have to stick lips on unless you want to. I'm just trying to make mine look a little bit more feminine, so I thought that lips would help. Now it's time for the hair. You can give your sculpture whatever hairstyle that you want. I'm going to try to keep it pretty simple. And you'll see me playing around with curly hair at the beginning. If you do want to make curly hair, all you need to do is make a coil and wrap it around a pencil or a toothpick, and that'll make a little curl. That does work better with polymer clay in my experience. Air dry clay does tend to crack when you bend it that much. So all I'm doing here, I'm keeping the hair pretty straight, and I'm just making little coils. I have my hairline, which is kind of like a side part, and then I'm just lining up the coils all the way to the back of the head. And then I gave her some little pieces in the front because I felt like she really needed it to cover up her big forehead. So you can have fun with it and make the hair however you would like. Here is my final sculpture. She came out a little funny, but I think she's gorgeous. Just have fun with this. If you make a mistake, go with it. You never know what fun character you might come up with. Remember, practice is so important, especially when working with clay. So just keep practicing and you'll keep getting better. Have a great week.
Welcome, boys and girls. This is Miss Pia from West Sanford, and today we're going to be making a painting that will take us to the forest. And we're going to be making this painting with our tints and shades. Now remember, a tint is when you have, let's say, your dark green, and you're going to add white to it, and you create your tint. But if you want to make still using these colors, if you want to make it a little darker, you add less of the white and more of the green, and you still have a tint. But if you want to make a shade, which we'll be working with shades, that's when you add black to your color. So if you add a little bit of black and some green, you get a nice shade, a nice dark green. But if you want to make a darker green, you add more black and a little less green, and that's how you will make a tint. And for this project, you're going to need a canvas board. I don't recommend cardstock paper because, as you see, we're going to be covering the whole page with paint, and that will make your paper very mushy. Anyway, we're going to need something for your water. I use two for this project. I use one for the light, for the tints, and one for the darks, the shades. So I have two different water so they don't get mixed up. And of course you're going to need a palette. As you can see, I love using my plastic ones because you can use them over and over rather than having to look for paper. Anyway, also it's good for the planet. A rag. Now my rags, I usually just make them out of old towels or whatever, just if you have mom throwing away any cloth, just look at it and see if you can use it for a rag. And those make very good rags. Now for our brushes, we will need what is called the butterfly brush. We will need a very thin brush, which will be good for line, and we will need a flat medium-sized brush. All of them have very soft bristles. Okay, so that is all we shall need. And now that you have that, now let's get going and begin our painting. We will begin by placing our canvas on the horizontal in front of us. With your white acrylic paint, you will put some paint in the center of your canvas, and around it you will place some of your light green. I have some light green, but if you have to make your own, go ahead and make your own, and place it around in a square shape, and then take your darker green and again put some of your paint around the edges, all edges of your canvas, and with your flat medium brush begin to swirl at the center onward out, and that way you will begin to mix your paint. When you are finished covering the entire canvas, you will notice that you have some edges around your colors. To avoid that, you take away any of the excess paint with your brush around, and use your rag to take away some of that paint from your brush, and keep going around your canvas, gathering some of that excess paint so you can blend in your colors without having edges. Now take your palette and begin to add the colors that we are going to be using, like your black, your dark green. If you have a light green, go ahead, put it there, or make your own light green, and white. So those are the colors we will be using. Once you have your palette ready, you will take your very thin brush, the one that's very good for lines, and begin to draw your trees. Your trees will be done starting at the very top, and not all of them are going to meet at the very bottom, so you can make them in all different lanes. At the very top is when they will all meet, and you will be making it with your regular green without adding any black to it. So you're creating what is going to be some of your trees. You will continue using your brush with the light green. Now what you're creating is a sense of depth with your painting. The lighter the color of the tree, the further back the tree will appear. So when you add a little black to your green or a little light, you're either making it forward or backwards. And you can, with your medium-sized brush, change the thickness of the tree. You can make them thicker or thinner. And to make the trees look closer to you, add black, and they will start to appear like they're closer to you. And that will give you a sense of depth in your work. So your work won't be flat. It will give a sense of a 3-dimension. What I find super fun about this project is that with one color plus black and white, you can create a painting that looks like it has lots of colors and that it has rich. It's rich with dimension and there's a lot going on. And again, it's just one color and your use of black and white. When you feel happy with the amount of trees you have drawn in the different shades and the different tints and different width, then take your butterfly brush and dip it in your green and begin in a dabbing motion in a circular form towards the edges of the bottom. Begin to dab in what will be your leaves and just dab around that edge in a circular motion. Begin with your darkest and work your way to the lightest in whatever you do, whether it be the leaves of the trees or the leaves at the bottom of your trail. Begin with the darkest, which will be your shades, and your tints are the lightest. And remember to just dab for your tree leaves or your leaves on the floor. And again, to give it a sense of dimension, you will use either a lighter color or a darker color, and that will create a sense of depth and three-dimension in your painting. When you are painting your leaves on the tree or on the floor and you're dabbing, do not dab in a pattern way. Just do them sporadically. That way they look much more real and be closer to the natural look than following a pattern. So you don't have to get every tree has to have a dark branch, but you can vary it from your light to your dark. Oh, and remember, work from your dark to your light. With my butterfly brush, I am going to add my middle range color, which is my green. And again, I will dab some of the leaves about. And again, not in a pattern way, just here and there, very whimsical with the brush. Do your leaves for the tree that way and the leaves on the floor the same way. And now with my butterfly brush, I'm going to add a lighter form of the green, which would be a tint. And as you can see, I'm starting to develop a sense of dimension in my forest. You can tell the leaves that are closer and the leaves that are further. Again, continue your dabbing. You can also add white if you like. And now you're starting to see that there's like this light at the center of your forest. keep dabbing away and develop those layers. Remember, you're going from tints to shades. You're going to start with shades, which is your darker colors, and go to tints, which will be your lighter colors. Before you call it quits, make sure you step away from your painting and give it a look and see where more is needed and less is needed. Give yourself one little look before you finish your dabbing, and then you complete your painting.
Hello there, I am Miss Alana. I am from the Universal branch of the Boys and Girls Club, and February is Black History Month. So all month long, we are going to learn about some contemporary Black artists. Our first featured artist is Nick Cave, and we're going to create a drawing, much like this one, inspired by his art. I'm going to list out our materials. We will learn about our featured artist and then create our own sound suit drawing. So let's get started. So the materials for today's project is paper, pencil and eraser, and markers. Optional, you can use scrap paper, sequins, beads, fabric, wrappers, and any other found objects within your area that you can glue down onto your drawing. And as we get our materials together, let's learn a little bit about our featured Black History Month artist, Nick Cave. Nick Cave is an American visual artist who works in a wide range of mediums, including sculpture, installation, video, sound, and performance. Nick Cave creates sculptures made from repurposed materials such as found objects, antiques, recycled fabrics, embroidery, sequins, and faux fur. He also makes sound suits that are worn by performers. His sound suits blend fashion and sculpture. They originated as metaphorical suits of armor in response to the 1991 Rodney King police brutality beatings and have evolved into vehicles for empowerment. Fully covering the body, the sound suits serve to obscure race, gender, and class, allowing viewers to look without bias towards the performer's identity. The suits serve as a visual embodiment of social justice that represents both brutality and empowerment. Cave works with local musicians and choreographers to create his spectacular performances as seen in this short clip. Cave's art aims to connect people together and create a source of community by bringing his artwork outside of the gallery walls and into the streets. Now that we've learned a bit about Nick Cave and his art, what do you like about it? What don't you like? Would you want to see one of his performances live? Let's take a moment to pause and answer these questions. Okay, now that we've had the opportunity to learn about Nick Cave, let's create some art inspired by him. So I have my paper, my pencil, and my eraser here with me. And the first thing we're going to do is learn how to draw our sound shape body. Now, if you're not very confident in drawing bodies, you can skip forward to the end of this section and put your paper up and trace it. But I really want you to try and draw this together with me. So I am starting out by drawing the head. So I'm going to do kind of a large circle for our head of our sound suit. If you wanted to do it a different shape or size, go ahead. As we saw with our examples of Nick Cave's art, he uses a lot of different shapes for his sound suits. So I have my head. I'm adding 2 lines down here for a neck. I'm going to add another line on each side coming off for some shoulders. And now we're going to start working on an arm. So this one I am going down and I'm making another line up, and that's going to be kind of our elbow. And I'm going to go down here and actually create the elbow and go back up and kind of taper this area to make that wrist. And since these are just suits and they don't have actual hands, we're just going to draw a mitten hand for our sound suit. So we have one side done. We can do the same on the other. I am going to do the arm in a different position. So this time I am going to make it extending outwards, like our person is in motion. They're dancing and performing. So now the same two parts of the arm, they're just extended. And then again, that little mitten of a hand for our performer. So now we have head, arms done. Let's start working on the rest of our body. So I'm just gonna extend down, starting from our armpits, go further down, make the rest of that torso, and then this is kind of our hip area. So working from our hips, we're going to go down and start to create a leg. So this leg is going to kind of replicate this arm going out. So it's just going to be a line that's straight, kind of going off to the side. And then our foot is pointing towards the viewer, towards us. So again, it's kind of just like the mitten like we have going on up here. And then we're going to connect it going up here. And now we're going to use this point and this point as the extension of another leg. So this leg is going to kind of copy this arm, how it's in a different movement. So we're going to go down there and go down a bit, and then this is going to create our thigh, and we'll make our knee right here go into the calf. So we're going to go down and taper in again, just like what we did with our wrist up there. And then this time our foot is going to be pointing off to the side a little bit. They're in a different position than this front one. And then that is it for the basics of our sound suit. So like I said, if you wanted to change the shape of your head, you can go back and do that. This time you can do a different position. We just want to make sure that we have it big enough that we can decorate our sound suit and then have enough area for our surrounding performance area. So now I have my outline drawing done. I'm going to go and actually outline it with a black marker so I can see it better. This is the time that we can use to make our sound suits in different positions, different poses, and show their movement if you don't want yours to look exactly like mine. And just like how each one of Nick Cave's sound suits are a different form of art, each one of our drawings is going to be a work of art. So really put your own creative spin on everything that you do and make it your own style. Right now we're just learning about a different artist, but you can always use a learning opportunity of a different artist to incorporate new things within your own art. So I'm keeping with this circle head up here. You can change it just like I said, but that is it for my sound suit. If you didn't draw yours earlier with me, you can now go and put your paper up on the screen and trace it if you want to. Alright, so now that we have our sound suit drawing done, it is time to fill it in and make it come to life with sound and movement. So you can grab some markers and you can color it in however you want, but I really encourage you to take a lead from Nick Cave and what we learned about him and look in your area and grab some different materials that you can repurpose. So I have a bunch of paper from other projects that I've worked on, some scraps. I can use these as things to add onto my sound suit. If you have materials like beads or sequins or leftover fabric, you can all cut those out and attach it to your sound suit. Really utilize Nick Cave's inspiration of found objects, recycling and reusing within your own sound suit. So I have all these recycled paper that I'm going to use to inspire me with my sound suit. I also have colors that I'm going to use, and I am going to use these in different patterns and different expressional mark making to promote this movement and performance art within this flat drawing. Now you can find different materials in your own room, use those within it. You can think about an experience that inspires you and use that as your source of inspiration. You can use different colors and textures to inspire you, or you can think of music and movement to inspire you. So I am going to work on mine independently. Like I said, you can follow along with it if you want. We are going to play some music, and then we are going to use that as our setting for our sound suits. So I'm going to get started and start drawing now, and you can draw along with me to create your own Nick Cave inspired sound suit drawing. As I'm adding details to my drawing, I'm thinking about the examples of Nick Cave sound suits we saw and how they looked when performing. Use this time to listen, be inspired by the music, and get creative. So this is my sound suit. I was inspired by movement and the scrap materials that I had around me, just like Nick Cave is. So in mine, I used music and movement coming from the heart, and it extends into the body. So I showed a heart and how it connects to all of the different parts of the body, and that this movement is extending out of it. I used 3D objects of the little scrap papers that I had to show that it is loud and that my sound and movement is lifting off of my page. So let's use this time to pause and share your sound suits with others and compare your own suit to the examples of Nick Cave that we saw today. And that is it for today. Thank you for joining me and learning about the amazing visual artist Nick Cave. Stay tuned for the next Black History artist and see you soon. Bye.